Julie Klam is the author of Love at First Bark. It sounds almost romantic, but not exactly right, huh?
It's a little romantic, you know, when you have that moment where you look at a dog and look into their eyes and maybe they bark at you and then your heart pounds a little bit. You know, and there's some romance in it.
So you wrote these stories about some individual dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Morris was a cat. I'm confused.
Well, we found Morris. Morris was a pit bull mix. We found him tied to a street sign next to the Morris Jumel Mansion in Manhattan. So we're always very clever about how we choose the names. I do Boston Terrier rescue, so I'm used to getting a dog, having 30 people apply for the dog, and picking the greatest home in the world. And
however,
it was very different with a pit bull. It was a Saturday, and I had called.
Why do you think it's very different with a pit bull? I think that there are people out there who want pit bulls. The thing is, there are only that many Boston Terriers. There are that many pit bulls. There are a lot of them.
I know, but there are shelters that will automatically put a pit bull down, and there are other shelters. Is
that the reputation, or because there are, again, just so many of them? I mean, there really are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them, but the ones that are usually dumped are the non-aggressive ones. The one that we had found was the sweetest dog in the world. He wouldn't fight.
Most are.
He had cigarette burns on his paws. It was heartbreaking. But we sort of spent this day learning about how much different it is, calling up rescues, and their outgoing voicemail said, "We don't take pit bulls." But we found a spot for him, so it was very rewarding.
and there's stories like that are in the book?
Yeah. This is the follow-up to a book I wrote called You Had Me at Woof, that was about when I got into rescue and all the crazy stuff that happened. And this was some stories that happened when I was working on promoting You Had Me at Woof. And one of them was a dog that we fostered. And then the third one was I'd gone down to New Orleans to sort of see what was happening with rescue post-Katrina, post-BP spill. And we got to see the most amazing people. Every person there has their own rescue group. And we got into this posse that was going to track this dog who had a jar stuck on his head.
Oh, whoa. Going with a posse, that sounds like from a John Wayne movie, first of all. Right. And with look for a dog that, what did you just say? Had a jar stuck on his head?
These people had seen the dog around with a jar stuck on his head for 5 days, and they couldn't catch him. The people in the town were afraid of him. I mean, I don't know what dog with a jar on his head could actually do to you.
Yes.
And the dog catcher had tried to dart it with a tranquilizer gun, and it was so thin at that point that the darts just bounced off, and the dog recognized his truck. So when it came, they ran away. So they realized they had to form a posse. So they got about 15 or 20 volunteers, all of us, to kind of circle and come in, except that, you know, how those plans go. They gave us flashlights and whistles. And so while they're telling the story of telling us how this is going to go, everybody's playing with their whistle, looking at the flashlight, and nobody pays attention. And so we spot the dog and everybody's screaming and whistles, and all the plans went right out the window. So we were...
Did anyone think of like squatting down on the ground with some steak and say, "Come here"? They had been, for 5 days, different people had been trying to get the dog. So it wasn't a matter of these dogs these are feral dogs. They don't come for a piece of steak. We were trying to get a Rottweiler who was loose. We had a cup of grilled chicken, and 3 of us had the grilled chicken, and the dog was starving, and he wouldn't come anywhere near us unless we put it down and walked away. And, you know, it's such a different, I mean, you know, your own dog. It's like, you know, if there's a bacon in the neighborhood, they'll come. That's true.
These dogs are not trusting. I mean, they're afraid, and they don't get fed by people. So
without giving much away, or I guess this would give it all away, did you ever catch that dog? Maybe you shouldn't tell me.
I'm not going to tell you, but it had a happy ending.
All right.
So
Love at First Bark. That's the name of the book. Julie Klam, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.